What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I've got for you probably one of the craziest entitled parent stories I've ever come across. But before we get into that, quickly, over half of you watching right now, according to my YouTube analytics, are not yet subscribed to my channel. So if you are new around here, hit that button. If you don't have an account, make one and subscribe. And if you think you are subscribed, just go and check anyway to make sure you are. Male Karen wants me to let his child step on kittens. I was at a restaurant earlier today and little kittens kept approaching me and other customers because they were used to being given food there. Anyway, I noticed a child who kept chasing the kittens and trying to step on their tails. I told him to leave them alone. He did, for a whole 5 minutes. Then he went back to stepping on them. I told him again to stop what he was doing and leave the cats alone. A few minutes later, I look to my side and see the man on the table next to me looking at me and talking agitatedly. I look behind me, but there's no one, so I point to myself and raise my eyebrows as in, "Are you talking to me, man?" He nods and says, "Yes, you. Who are you to talk to my child that way?" That's when I see the kid from earlier talking in his ear. Cool. Well, your child was stepping on kittens. He was doing nothing. No, your child was stepping on kittens and I told him to stop so that they don't scratch him. They did scratch him, by the way. Well, you shouldn't have yelled at my son. Your son shouldn't step on kittens. Raise him correctly before you start teaching other people's children how to behave. Anyway, the man and his 9 children, what? I assumed there were 9 kids with him anyway, Jesus, kept glaring at me until they left. So F you, Male Karen, you and your kids can watch me feed little adorable kittens and give them pets, while you enjoy your scratches and cold hearts. Yeah, I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. This is literally animal abuse. That's just disgusting. Why would you let your kid do that? It's just a horrible thing to do. It's so cruel as well. These kittens are so helpless. They're just trying to get some food. And all your son can do, your little kid can do, is just step on their tails and cause them probably an immense amount of pain. What a horrible thing to do, firstly for the son, but more for the dad to let that happen. What a horrible person. Guys, let me know as well. Did we agree on Darren as the female Karen, like an entitled dad? Because I like that. It works well. Darren and Karen. What do you think? Now moving on to our second story, entitled parent gets mad at other people's kids for not looking out a plane window. Some backstory first. So my dad works in the military and it sent us overseas. During this time, we lived in a number of places, but at the time of this story, we lived in northern Italy. My parents sent me and my 2 older brothers to Italian schools, and because of this, the 3 of us learned and spoke fluent Italian. But the first things we learned were cuss words, of course. Now in Europe, you can buy some cheap plane tickets and could fly to most places for cheap. My parents took advantage of these tickets and the fact we were in Europe to go everywhere. By the time I turned 12, I had been to every country in Europe. What? Morocco, Israel, Jordan, Tanzania, and some places in Asia. That's insane. Yes, I am well aware of how lucky I am to have been to all these places and to have done so many cool things. However, because of how often we were on planes and traveled, looking out the window on a plane wasn't all that interesting. It makes sense now. So to keep us quiet, Dad had gotten each of us a Nintendo DS so we could play while we traveled. And now this is where our story begins. Me, I was 11 and my family were on a plane. I can't remember where to. The plane was arranged so that there would be 3 seats on either side and a place to walk in the middle. Me and my brothers sat together. I got the aisle seats and my mum and dad sat on the other side with some nice guy. Me and my 2 older brothers pulled out our DSs after the plane took off. This apparently was the wrong thing to do, because when we closed the window and started playing on our DSs, an entitled Italian mum got mad. This lady was sitting behind my dad and she was sitting next to her 16-ish-year-old son and what I assume was her husband. Now, when she saw me and my brothers not looking out the window, she immediately started screaming at my dad. Now, my dad didn't speak Italian and she was screaming something pretty close to Italian. This woman was yelling about how this was her first time on a plane and how me and my brothers were setting a bad example for her kid, who looked to be 16, by not looking at the beautiful land below, and how we, me and my brothers, should be overjoyed to be looking out the plane because it was a rare opportunity and we were wasting it, and how my dad was a horrible parent. I really didn't know why she had such a problem with 3 boys not looking out the window. My dad was confused and asked me to translate, so I told him what she was screaming about. My dad asked me to tell her in Italian about how this wasn't anything new for us and we were just being quiet. I, however, was fuming at this woman for being loud, rude, and for calling my saint of a dad a horrible parent. So I, instead of saying what my dad wanted me to, said in a very polite tone in Italian, "Listen, you female dog, just because this is your first flight doesn't mean it's ours. We have flown many hours and have looked out the window plenty. We have been quiet and respectful, unlike you. You have annoyed other people because some kids you have nothing to frickin' do with have chosen to play quietly on their games, instead of looking out the frickin' window. Mind your own dang business, you ugly POS." The woman sat there in shock for a few minutes and then went back to her seat and shut up. My brothers were weeing themselves laughing, and my dad thought I told her exactly what he said and was very confused at my brothers. We played our games in peace the rest of the flight. Oh, what an awesome story. I mean, yeah, that entitled mum definitely got what she deserved. I do kind of get what she's saying, that it is a privilege to go on a plane. There's no doubt about that. But if someone is just being quiet, respectful, it doesn't really matter if they're not looking out the window. Come on, that's not like a prerequisite, a rule. What you have to do if you get the window seat on a plane is look out the window. Yeah, sure, it's nice for the majority of people, but some people probably are just used to it by now. That's fine. Now, guys, that penultimate paragraph included a lot of swearing that unfortunately I had to censor. Now, if you are fed up of me censoring myself and these stories that I read right here, then you may want to go and check out Redditor Uncensored. It is a brand new channel that I have launched with some super secret videos that you can go and unlock in the description and in the pinned comment down below. Pretty much, it is the only place where I can get away with saying all these swear words, saying what's on my mind properly, saying controversial stuff, dark humor, that sort of stuff. So if that sounds like something you may enjoy, and perhaps you are more of a mature viewer, then head along and I'll happily see you over there. Now for our final story. Doctors shut down entitled mum during an emergency. I'm posting this for a friend of mine. My buddy is a very good surgeon and has dedicated his life to medicine. He frequently goes to hotspots around the world to offer his services. He spent time in Syria, in Iraq during the war, in Africa after 9/11 and the Boston bombing. He got in his car and offered his help at hospitals there. He is unmarried, and the only thing he does for himself is he takes 3 or 4 weeks off twice a year. Once in July and once in December. He told me he does this so he doesn't lose his mind. On those times, he really lets loose. He'll go on vacation somewhere, maybe take up a hobby, go skydiving, scuba diving, meet women, eat wild food. And at Christmas, he spends time with his brother's family and apparently gives some pretty nice gifts. He's as good of a person as you could ever hope to meet and an excellent surgeon. Without giving too much away, before COVID at his hospital, they had a pretty busy day, which at a hospital is never a good thing. He was doing one emergency surgery after another. Everyone was slammed and more people were waiting for emergency care. One person had already died because of the backlog and a few more were on the operating table. No matter how good the surgeon is, sometimes you simply can't save people. In the midst of all this chaos, an entitled mother walks into the ER and begins demanding that someone see her brat kid, who had a bruise on his face because another kid punched him at school, probably for being a brat. The secretary managed to get her to wait in the waiting room with all the people waiting to see if their loved ones were okay. Her kid went and apparently decided that he was the only one allowed to play with the hospital waiting room toys and would scream at any other kids who tried to approach. Our hero doctor, meanwhile, is fighting for the life of a 16-year-old who was in a car accident. No idea if it was his fault or not, it didn't matter, and sadly the kid didn't make it. I always feel this is the worst thing for a surgeon. They try their best, but sometimes it's not good enough. He has to get his own emotions in check before going to face the parents. They have a special room for this in the hospital. It has comfortable furniture and a table that is nailed down. He is in the middle of breaking this awful news to parents who are feeling a pain that words are too cheap to describe when in bursts Karen. Apparently, she followed the parents as they were escorted to the room. She looked around and said, "When you are done taking a break, my son needs..." The doctor shoves her out and calls security. He finishes talking to the parents, then goes to the waiting room. The secretary filled him in. He asked the mother, who had been berating the secretary ever since being so rudely treated by the doctor, which child was hers. He went over to the kid and in the waiting room gives the kid a quick look over, declares he doesn't have a concussion and tells the EM to get the F out of my hospital before I call the police. "But I demand you..." "No, I have patients that need me much more than you. Your kid is fine, you just need to raise him better. Get the F out." He had security escort her and her kid all the way to her car to ensure that she left. This is a guy who I have never seen get angry. He got robbed in Ibiza losing his wallet, all his credit cards, IDs and his passport, and shrugged it off saying he already cancelled the card. Put an alert out for the IDs and the most the robber got was about €50 and a nice wallet. But when he told me this story, he was shaking with rage. Oh, wow. Well, yeah, that really doesn't surprise me. Can you imagine being a surgeon, right, trying to save people's lives? And obviously, at some point, there's going to be a life that you can't save. In this story, it was a 16-year-old's life, and then the guy has to go and tell his parents who are waiting there, probably so scared, so worried about what could potentially happen, just praying that their son makes it. Having to tell them that, I'm so sorry guys, but your son has actually passed away, only to then get interrupted by an entitled mum whose kid has a bruise. What is going through her mind? Oh, Jesus, I'm just shocked that this doctor didn't react worse than he did. Oh, man. He honestly just sounds like an absolute hero, not just for his job, but for his general temperament as well, and the things that he has to do day to day are just unbelievable. Good on him for kicking the lady out, because that is the bare minimum that he could have done in that situation. Oh, Jesus, yeah, what a horrible, horrible woman. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Entitled Parents. I really hope you have enjoyed it. And if you are still watching, then go ahead and go and check out Redditor Uncensored. The link is in the description, the pinned comment, as I said earlier. If you want to see me swearing, talking about even darker stuff than this, trust me, we can get very dark over there. And, you know, just having a good time and being 100% myself, then that is the place to go and watch me do that. I'm really loving putting content out there on the moment, and you guys are supporting it massively. So thank you very much to those of you that have signed up already. With that being said, I will see you guys tomorrow back here on the main channel for a brand new upload.